GTA 5 is definitely an awesome game. However, no matter how hard we or anyone else tries, nothing will ever be perfect. The purpose of today's video is to bring up an error, bug, inconsistency, plot hole, anything like that about each mission in GTA 5. I admit to you guys that this is going to be a lot of work because the missions in GTA 5, at least some of them, are very well crafted and have almost no flaws, but I did my best here to look for a little something wrong in at least each one of them. It's important to make it clear that this video is in no way a critique of GTA 5, it's just for us to have fun discovering a little mistake in each mission. That being said, hit the like button and subscribe and let's get started. The GTA 5 prologue takes place in North Yankton, which is a city far away from Los Santos. However, if you look there at the bank teller window, at the beginning of the mission and all, there's an alarm notice warning that the alarm may go off and so on, and with that the police will come after you. But in this alarm notice that you are seeing, there is the logo of the city of Los Santos, or it's the logo of the city of Los Santos, so it's kind of a script error here, because there should be another symbol in this location which would be from the police or from the state of North Yankton. In the Franklin and Lamar mission, there's a moment where Franklin and Lamar, they talk, and Franklin claims to have the paperwork for the vehicle. However, if you end up leading the police to Simeon's dealership during the mission will fail, which doesn't make much sense. Assuming Franklin has all the paperwork for the vehicle, the mission shouldn't fail because everything is okay. In the mission repossession, you have to steal that green motorcycle and take it back to Simeon, right? Actually, not steal, in fact, you have to reclaim it. But there is a small flaw in the game, which I think should have been explored a little better or better explained, which is simply the fact that you can take this motorcycle to Simeon afterwards or to Simeon's dealership, but still you don't have any problems. The mission doesn't fail, and the mission also doesn't progress in returning the motorcycle, which is in a way strange because I know that for the game to continue we should keep the motorcycle, but there should be a real plausible reason for Franklin not being able to deliver the motorcycle to Simeon, and since the dealership is here, there should be some reason for Simeon not being there or someone not being able to receive the motorcycle. In the mission complications, there is a part that is often discussed as a theory or maybe a plot hole, which is precisely the part where Michael is in the back seat of the vehicle when we are trying to steal Jimmy's vehicle. When we steal Jimmy's vehicle actually. I know that many people must have stopped to think what the hell Michael was doing there in the back seat, and the truth is that it seems very strange. Some people claim that Michael already knew that Franklin was trying to break into the house to steal the vehicle, and so with that, he hid in the back seat to ambush Franklin. Other people believe that Michael was there in the backseat, waiting to catch Amanda in the act with the tennis coach during the betrayal and so on. I honestly don't think either of the two options makes 100% sense, because imagine that either you want to catch a thief or you want to catch your wife in the act. It wouldn't make much sense for you to be hidden under a blanket in the back seat of the vehicle, which is in the garage, basically separated from the house. Really very strange. I don't think this part has been well fitted in until today. In the mission, Pulling Favors, you can make a stop where you will see Tonya with a slightly supernatural strength. If you block Tonya's access on the passenger side of the tow truck and enter first in your part of the truck, you will see Tonya climbing up and pulling you out of the truck with just one arm, throwing Franklin to the ground, and then she gets in. In the mission Chop, there's something that happens, which is the following. The second time we're using the tow truck to chase D. D is in one of the 3 wagons at the end, and the tricky thing here is that when you look at the wagons from the other side, if you go around and look at the wagons from the right, you'll see that all 3 wagons are closed. However, if you come here and open the wagon where D was, you'll see that the wagon was actually open on the other side, so it's kind of a plot hole there, because it's not explained how that wagon is open on the other side. In the mission Marriage Counseling, something happens that I would say is a script flaw. Actually, it happens in a few, but I'll talk about one that catches my attention a lot, which is the fact that Martin Madrazo takes Franklin's document at the end of the mission and he simply never returns it. Maybe that explains why Martin Madrazo was interested in Franklin to do the Caida Libre mission and such, and then Michael decides to call Trevor, but it's still not very well explained and Franklin himself doesn't complain, so I don't know, I find it at least strange. In the mission Daddy's Little Girl, for some reason that I don't quite understand, there is a replica of the characters inside the yacht here. If you come to this yacht by helicopter in a hidden way, you will see that there are 2 NPCs up there on the yacht, this dude here plus this other guy. These guys are the ones who will chase you on jet skis later on. However, if you go down a little to the bottom of the ship where Tracy is dancing, you will see another one of these NPCs, so at least one of these NPCs is cloned. I don't know exactly why there is this clone and all, but there is definitely a reason for it. The mission Friend Request is a really cool mission, to be honest, but I think it's one of the missions with the most plot holes, and I think maybe the biggest plot hole in this mission is the fact that Michael manages to get into Life Invader without using masks or anything like that. He leaves evidence there, including fingerprints and so on, and he's never investigated after Jay Norris's death. It's true that since it's a mission he did for Lester, Lester may have helped him a lot, but I think Michael exposed himself too much in this mission, because at the end of the mission he even leaves his bag there, which would contain fingerprints, DNA, and everything else. So there are kind of two plot holes in this escape. The first one is that it's not clear why no one ever goes after Michael, and the second is how Michael, being an experienced thief, has the courage to leave evidence like that right in plain sight. He didn't do things quietly, didn't wear gloves to touch the cell phone, which was the prototype, and so on, you know? The mission, the long stretch, many people do it at the beginning of the game. However, you can leave it to do it much later. If I'm not mistaken, you are only limited to the Blitz Play Heist, I'm not sure, or it's the Merryweather Heist if you haven't done this mission yet. So even though it's a mission that unlocks early on, it takes a long time until you are forced to complete it. And what's the cool part about it? You can do the hotel assassination mission first and then the long stretch mission. And if you do that, even though Franklin is no longer a resident of Aunt Denise's house, because after the hotel assassination mission, he moves to Vinewood, he enters the house normally within this mission as if he had the key. It's kind of a minor plot hole, but it's a very simple thing that almost no one does because almost everyone does the stretch mission right at the beginning. In the jewelry heist preparation mission, Lester's pants change color between the first and last cutscene. If you look closely here at the moment Michael arrives, you see that his clothes have a certain hue, but in the last cutscene when he's talking to Michael before they go to prepare for the heist, you see that it changed slightly. The jewelry heist, I think, is the heist that cheats the most for you to win. This is because at the end of the mission there, very close, in that part of the pursuit, in the middle of the sewer, you get a vehicle, which is the truck in this case, that just by touching any police vehicle, it destroys the police vehicle, which doesn't make much sense, but it's clearly the game trying to help you finish this mission faster. I believe this could have been developed in a different way, but oh well. 15. In the mission Mr. Phillip, when Trevor is introduced, he simply beats Johnny Klebitz to death. What many people don't know is that Johnny Klebitz doesn't die right away. If you approach with a gun and shoot Johnny Klebitz, you'll see an X appear, you know, as if you had just killed the NPC. So that means Johnny Klebitz wasn't 100% dead at that moment when Ashley is crying over him. There's even a bug in earlier versions of GTA 5, like PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, where if you set fire nearby or cause an explosion near Johnny Klebitz, he'll get up, even after being on the ground and taking all those kicks to the face. At the end of the mission, Trevor Phillips Industries, if you left Ortega alive in the previous mission, if you decide in this mission not to kill Ortega using Trevor, Chef will end up killing him after a long time, okay? It takes a little while for this to happen, but what goes wrong here is that even if Chef kills Ortega, Chef will keep saying various dialogues like, "You got Trevor," or something like that, insinuating that Trevor killed Ortega.
You got him, man! He's dead!
In the mission Nervous Ron, after we deliver the packages to Oscar, Ron tells you through the headset not to fly over Fort Zancudo, however. You can take the plane and simply pass over it. Nothing happens, no wanted level. In the Crystal Maze mission, your wanted level is completely disabled. You can even enter Fort Zancudo or any other place you want, steal any vehicle you want, and do whatever you want in the game without any police chasing you. An important detail is that I think this doesn't work on the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions, only on PS4 and newer consoles. In the mission Friends Reunited during the journey to Los Santos, Trevor tells Wade a lot about how he met Michael, what it was like when he met Michael, and how they met, and so on. And so far everything's cool. He even talks a little about Brad and Amanda. The big problem happens much later in the mission Pac-Man when Trevor tells Lamar how he and Michael met, and the story is completely different, so I don't know if Trevor was just making something up in this mission, or if there is really some wrong information there that Trevor ended up passing on to Wade or Lamar. In my view, the story he tells Lamar is more convincing, but it could be that since he was using metaphors in this mission, Friends Reunited, he really said something wrong. In the mission Fame or Shame, while we're chasing Laszlo through the train tracks and so on, there's a part where a monorail passes by in the game, which is that cable car. I think it's called a cable car, not really sure. But during this mission, and only during this mission, instead of having a cable car, you actually have two train cars parked almost side by side. Those train cars never appear there again because that's where the cable car is supposed to pass. In the mission Dead Man Walking, Michael wakes up and knows exactly what to do, which doesn't make much sense since first Dave hits Michael and then he gives instructions while Michael is unconscious. Additionally, a second kind of plot hole connected to this in this mission is that Michael is alive when the doctors open the bag where he was, and it's kind of impossible for two coroners not to notice that there was a guy breathing there on the table and all anyway. A little plot hole, basic stuff. In the mission Three's Company, if Michael keeps shooting in a fixed spot non-stop when he already has Ferdinand rescued outside, hanging by the rope, Michael will start moving around the environment as he shoots due to the gun's recoil. But it's very funny because he can go very far, even through walls, because during this moment here, he has no collision. In the mission By the Book Winchard Wa, when you're torturing Mr. K, you can hit one of his legs, usually the left one. However, in the cutscene when he leaves, he's in pain on the other leg, like leaning on the leg that should be hurt and dragging the one that's fine, which doesn't make much sense. After the Hood Safari mission, even if you kill MC Clip during the mission, in that part of the jet ski escape, you can see a tweet from MC Clip on Bleeter as if he had survived. In the mission, Did Somebody Say Yoga? There is a bug that you can exploit to prevent Michael from drinking the drug drink that Jimmy gives him. The bug consists of Michael continuously scrolling through his contacts on his phone while driving and calling the first person on the list. It's very difficult to get the timing right, but if you manage to do it, Michael will hold onto his phone and won't take the cup from Jimmy's hand. Since he doesn't take the cup from Jimmy and doesn't get drugged, the mission will glitch and get stuck in that point, not progressing. Even if you move with the mod to Michael's house, the mission will still be frozen because the correct sequence is for Michael to drink the drug and be thrown out of the car to continue the mission. In the mission Scouting the Port, you can't do many things to prevent Trevor from being exposed, meaning you can't run over people, you can't kill anyone inside, and so on. However, if you have a container in that part where you have to collect the containers with Floyd, you can run over workers without failing the mission. I don't know why this happens, but maybe it's some kind of protective mechanism to prevent players from failing too easily when carrying the containers. In the Merryweather heist, it is said that a super nuclear weapon was stolen, at least that's what Trevor says. However, later on in the mission Legal Trouble we can see a newspaper article stating that the missing submarine was found, which is precisely the submarine from the Merryweather heist, and it is described as having intact refined uranium. So I don't know if the uranium would be the super weapon or not, but I don't know. I think there should have been a news article much closer to what we saw in the Merryweather heist, like submarine with super weapon found or something. After the hotel assassination mission, Franklin loses access to the house where he lived since he gets the new house from Lester in Vinewood, but that doesn't make much sense considering he owns half of the house where he lived with Aunt Denise, and the garage is still functional, so it might be a way for the game to force you to live only in Vinewood, but I think Franklin should still have access to the house in the poor neighborhood with Aunt Denise. I don't think there's actually a reason for the house to be locked now. In the Blitz Play mission, the vehicles like the garbage truck and the tow truck that are used to ambush the armored car, they stay indestructible there because you can't destroy them since you're going to use one of those vehicles in the getaway. However, there is such a huge shootout there, and then the game leaves the vehicles indestructible so you don't fail the mission easily when you end up destroying one of those vehicles. In the mission I Fought the Law, the wanted levels are disabled and a ramp is inserted inside Fort Zancudo. I know the idea with this is to allow the protagonist to enter Fort Zancudo with the wanted level disabled and then have to find a ramp to escape, but I think it's just kind of cheesy because there's no explanation for why there's a random ramp in the middle of a military base. In the mission Eye in the Sky, the end of the mission implies that the helicopter pilot was thrown out by Trevor. However, when we switch to Trevor, he is not wanted at the 3-star level as he should be, which I think was just a little flawed. The scene of the pilot being thrown appears in the trailer. It was cut from the final version, but if Trevor had just really thrown a cop out of the helicopter, when we switch to him at that point, I think he should be at 3 stars, like in some scene transitions where he is at 2. 32. In the mission, Mr. Richards, the script favors Michael too much, especially when the supposed security guard of Rocco Pelosi doesn't surrender to Michael since the guy is armed. The funniest part of all this is that after that, Michael can use a weapon to try to surrender Rocco Pelosi, and even though Rocco Pelosi is being beaten up, his security guard, who was the guy who was armed, doesn't come back to help. He simply lets him screw himself. 33. In the mission Deep Inside, even if you don't eject that actress who sits in the passenger seat complaining a lot, after this mission a post will appear on Bleeter from a user saying they saw a woman being thrown out of a car and thinks she's famous. In the Caida Libre mission, Martin Madrazo's cousin is already out of the plane as soon as it crashes, which doesn't make much sense, right? Because in theory everyone would have crashed inside that plane, so I don't know why Rockstar bothered to leave that NPC there, and if I'm not mistaken there's still another one outside. I think they could have just had the plane crash, Trevor would enter, grab the briefcase and leave. There wouldn't necessarily need to see the guy outside and try to kill him or something. In the mission Minor Turbulence, Trevor steals the Merryweather cargo plane, which is simply huge, and the idea with this was to take that plane to Mackenzie Airfield. However, this plane doesn't fit in either Mackenzie Airfield or Sandy Shores Airport, which is the airport we took from the Lost. Even though in theory it seems like this plane could fit in Sandy Shores Airport, if you try to land or take off with it from here, the wings will hit a tree and the plane will be damaged. The only place Trevor could really land this thing would be at Los Santos Airport, and it would still be a huge hassle, so I think this mission had one of of the most obvious plot holes in the game, because Trevor isn't a genius, but he's not that dumb either. 36. In the mission Predator, there is a moment where the O'Neill brothers dodge a deer passing through the middle of the street, and then the car flips over and starts to catch fire down below. During the cutscene, you can see that the vehicle has all the doors. However, when you pass by the vehicle, you see that the front passenger door is actually missing. I think the door is on the ground, but this piece on the ground doesn't even look exactly like a door. It's a strange thing, but anyway, it's not the same as in the cutscene. In the mission Derailed, it is never explained how the other train comes from the opposite direction in this location. No matter how long you stay on a train throughout the game, there will never be two trains going in different directions, except in this mission, which shows a quite forced script there, including if you stay here after this mission ends, looking to see if any train appears and such, other trains will appear. However, this train will pass without collision through the other one that is stopped up there. 38. During the Paleto Bay heist preparation, we have to drive a lot throughout the game. If you decide to enter Los Santos using Trevor during this mission, it won't fail and you will be able to access it smoothly. However, if you go with Michael, you will have problems both in attracting Martin Madrazo's attention and possibly failing the mission. I don't know why the difference between the two. In the Paleto Bay heist, we arrive in a van in front of the bank and we execute the heist pretty quickly. However, as soon as we leave the bank for some unexplained reason, this van simply disappears. It could just stay here to be destroyed in the middle of the shootout and all, but it just vanishes. In the mission Monkey Business, we access the humane lab through the sewer exit by the sea, and so on in the game. The strange thing here is that even after all that stuff we did and all that operation that happened, the entrance to the lab there in the sewer part is restored exactly as before. There are no marks, additional surveillance, and no changes, which to me is a slight script flaw. Or they could have stayed there as if it were a welded iron, or they could have changed those entrances, since supposedly they would have found out that the spies entered through there. After the Hang 10 mission, Floyd's apartment garage continues to be functional, which doesn't make much sense from a logical standpoint, since that apartment becomes a crime scene and so on. How could Trevor, I don't know, keep his vehicle there without drawing attention from the police? And it's also never made clear how the police never goes after Trevor, even though Trevor lived there for a while, and then Floyd and Deborah are murdered, and no one ever goes after him for anything. Surveying the score, it's strange that a helicopter stays parked next to the bank that holds the National Gold Reserve, and that didn't attract any attention from the police at all, even though you have to fly very low with the huge camera on that Lester is using to film the footage for the heist and everything, with a tunnel passing by the bank near the vault. Well, this part here seems a bit off. I think it could have been done differently, but it's okay. In the mission Bury the Hatchet, if you start this mission with Michael, you will have to drive a part of North Yankton until you reach the cemetery. If you do this, when you pass by the North Yankton sign, you can still see the tire marks from the vehicle that was here in the prologue. In the mission Pac-Man, you have a kind of cheat because the game puts 3 characters inside the truck's cabin. You can try to repeat it, but you can't. In this case, here was Trevor, Lamar, and Franklin. In the mission Fresh Meat, there is a bug for you to discover Michael's location. All you have to do is, during the mission, switch to Michael, open your map, place a point of interest exactly where Michael is, then switch to Franklin and go after the point of interest. It's simply very easy. 44. In the mission Cleaning Out the Bureau, the game says you can't attract the janitor's attention while we're following him. However, I don't know why this happens in this mission. If you stay basically glued to him, walking really close to him, Lester will keep telling you several times not to get too close to the janitor, but the mission won't fail anyway. 44. In the FIB Heist Roof version, the characters jump from an extremely long distance from the building to avoid drawing attention, meaning they go there with parachutes right to the spot and enter through the skylight. However, shortly after, the helicopter with the pilot is already hovering over the building, which is when it gets shot down. So it doesn't make much sense for that pilot to be there at that exact moment when the shootout is still going on and the characters haven't completed their mission yet. The pilot should come to that location right at the very end. After the mission Reuniting the Family, Michael kind of promises to never betray Amanda again. They talk about it a lot in therapy and also in the car on the way back. Despite this, if you go out with prostitutes later on, or even with the girlfriends in the game, Michael doesn't receive any punishment and there's no additional dialogue about it. In the mission Legal Trouble, as soon as you manage to reach Molly, you can activate Michael's special ability, and this will possibly cause Molly to glitch. This glitch occurs more easily in the PlayStation 4 and computer version. If Molly glitches, Michael will be able to pass through her and reach the plane much faster than her. Still, Michael will never be sucked into the plane's turbine. The game will keep trying to spawn Molly again, so that she definitively spawns in front of the plane and then gets sucked in. Even if Michael is next to her, he won't be sucked in together. 47. In the mission, Meltdown, the light turns on and off kind of without any explanation. Even if Jimmy had turned it off inside the room, let's suppose there's a power switch inside Jimmy's room and I couldn't find any there. The light shouldn't turn back on automatically right after, like when Jimmy is doing the teabag on Michael, you know? Because the light simply turns off completely and then it comes back on its own, and it's not exactly explained how that happens. 48. In the mission, the wrap-up, this place here is almost completely destroyed. There is a lot of destruction that happens here. A little further into the game, the place is all fixed. However, if you come back here, you will see that there is only one thing that was not repaired, and I don't know why, which is the following right here in the middle where these NPCs are. There is a crashed helicopter here, which I think is actually the helicopter that Trevor shoots down when he shoots the pilot. And the NPCs are just standing here around the destroyed helicopter as if nothing is wrong, which is very strange. In the mission Lamar Down, there is a cutscene that happens when we arrive there and meet with Michael and Trevor outside the sawmill, where they look at Lamar through binoculars and you can see him wearing a certain outfit. However, when you go to save Lamar, you see that his outfit is different from the one in the cutscene, which also doesn't make much sense. In the Big Score subtle version, we see Trevor showing his badge to the manager. Actually, we see all the characters showing it. What is very interesting here is that these characters' badges mark that they are in the year 2008 or 2009, and it's never exactly explained why the badges mark that date, but they do. At the end where Trevor's death happens, Michael helps to ambush Trevor there, where he comes with that blue car, hits Trevor's car, and makes Trevor hit the gas tank. However, many people didn't notice this, except for those who have already watched some videos here on the channel. At the end of this mission, you find out that there is another one of Michael's cars parked back there, which is his personal vehicle, so it doesn't make much sense for Michael to know exactly where Trevor was going, to get another car, leave his car parked there and such, so this part is a huge script hole. Michael's car being there, I don't know, Michael could simply call a taxi, but that's not what happens. At the end of Michael's death, where Michael and Franklin are fighting up there on that water tank if I'm not mistaken, despite Michael's ability being bullet time and his level of accuracy with a gun being extremely huge, he misses several shots several times, almost point blank, which clearly shows that the script is helping Franklin a lot in that part, since Michael with a gun in hand should be able to defeat Franklin without difficulty. 52. In the Option C mission, even if you arrive with the car using Franklin's car, etc., when it cuts to that cutscene where they're going to call Lester, Franklin's bike will spawn instead of the car, and Lamar, who arrived with Franklin here, it's never explained how he simply disappears in the middle of the mission. There's no message, there's nothing, Lamar just disappears at that point, and it's not even explained afterwards what happened. I know that a lot of these inconsistencies come from the fact that the game has a lot of things to happen before reaching its final version. So many missions are designed in many different ways throughout development, and when they reach the final version, there are several loose ends that are exactly what I was showing here in this video for you guys. If you want to see a curiosity about each mission of GTA 5 and a really sensational curiosity, click here next to the yellow arrow to see it, and man, there's a lot of good stuff. That's it folks, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until the next video then, take care and peace out.